Hi all, welcome to the Way Forward Talks with me, Amrita. The Way Forward is a company where we are into career development. We help people grow on their career path. We are into interview preparation, resume writing, and many more. Today, commemorating Navrathri, we are in discussion with women entrepreneurs, and we have a clinical dietitian from Dubai. She is really experienced and she's an amazing person, a very positive person. So I'm very happy to have Miss Lovely Ranganath with us on this platform. So welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Amrita, for the warm welcome. And I'm happy to be here. And I think I would associate myself, I'm very passionate about nutrition, no doubt about it. But I think also on the side, as with all women, I don't want to be just a nutritionist, and I can't be like just like all of us. I think we all end up playing multiple roles. So yes, I'm a mom, and I always like to say that I have 3 children. I'm married to the eldest, so he's you have to end up taking care of them. The eldest one is a 21-year-old graduate. The second one is grade 10. Of course, other than that, the responsibilities of being a mom, you also are a good friend to many people. You're a counselor. I think we women have so many roles that we do, just like men. I'm not trying to say the men don't have that, but it can get overwhelming for us because I remember when I was working earlier on, when I leave from, I had an 8 to 5 job always for many years. And when I leave at 5, the people, especially the men who are staying back to work extra hours, so you've got half time. I'd say, yeah, now I'm going back to an unpaid job. So, yeah, so happy to be here and share my experiences with, the audience and you.
Amazing. So I know she's a great person. She has put herself in a very beautiful way, but she's a Dubai government authorized nutritionist. Am I right, ma'am?
Clinical dietitian. I have my DHA license from the Department of Health. That's a governing body in Dubai to practice as a clinical dietitian. And to give you a little bit of my professional background, uh, I've got 20 plus odd years of experience. And the first 10 years was as a clinical dietitian in healthcare hospitals in Dubai. And then I moved on to hospitality. So it was with a major semi-government organization. There it was more of a nutritionist. You would call it a culinary nutritionist because I had to work very closely with the chefs. And I think both these, experiences had made me understand the nuances of the healthcare and the hospitality. So the food industry and the health industry. And it's been an amazing journey. And right now, I think I always wanted to be, I think from 2018, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur or do something on my own because of the wide range of experience I've garnered. Now, whether it's professional or also personal growth, like I always say, we don't have an instruction manual given to us, nobody gives you an instruction manual for life. And then you find yourself and you find things through trial and error. And that has been, I think it's been a sort of coming together of all of this that, sort of said, I think you're ready to be an entrepreneur because not just the fancy, not just the attraction to the word entrepreneur, because I know that comes with a lot of hard work. And it's not, the back scene is not as it is glorified to be. It's a 24/7 job. And, there are a lot of things that comes with being an entrepreneur. But I think emotionally, I was in that space where I was ready for it. Simply because, you reach that point where you're like, what more can I offer to the organizations you're working with? And you think about it, it's more or less, it gets to that point where you kind of feel that you've done most of it or done that, seen that, been there, and that's when you said, and also you find that something about, there'll be certain strengths that you have, that you kind of discover while you are, working here and there. And I think working on those strengths is when I decided I love educating people, I love empowering people. And I think um, I remember specifically having this talk once to an MNC. And after the talk, I think I must have wowed the people, because there were a lot of people who just stood up and they started walking towards me. And I think that was my moment of realization where I said, you know what, you are really good at educating and empowering people. And I think, so I've taken that kind of a aha moment, I would say, from many years back. It must be at least 10 years back that aha moment happened. And right now I want to empower the chefs, because I feel with my experience in the culinary world, there's a huge gap from what I've seen with chefs and their knowledge of nutrition. And in the coming years, I think COVID has made it more, it's resonated it more. Like, yes, we might be going to chefs only for one meal, and we can brush it aside and say, what can one meal do? But with the way the world is moving, I think we'll be depending on chefs not just for one meal. And also the community of chefs is not just going to be the ones who are coming out of catering college. You even have home-raised chefs now. People have found that passion, and there's a lot of things that nutrition, well-being, health, these are here to stay. I think COVID has made that, it's a no-brainer. It's become, it's like, it's there. It's not going to go away. We cannot run away from it. And chefs as a community, they need to get on board. So my goal is not to train them to become dietitians or nutritionists, but give them some kind of empowerment where they can take decisions on their own, to find that fine balance between, the battle of the taste and the waste, expanding waste, and the taste has to be there, because right now they are very much focused on the taste factor. So I think that's the gap I'm trying to fill in with my entrepreneurial venture, and I've called it the Good Food Guru. Here I am.
Nice, really good to hear all about your Good Food Guru, and looking forward to the success of that. I'm sure it's a really great thing. So wishing you all the best on that. So we'll just go into a small flashback.
Sure.
As a home science student, once you've finished school back in Dubai in the old days, so how did you venture into nutrition? How was your interest into it?
Okay, I'm sure a lot of home science students will resonate with what I'm going to say now. So I did my schooling in Dubai, and I did not have a really good relationship with maths. So it was my complicated relationship with maths that made me choose, home science, home economics as a subject in grade 11 and 12. So basically, it was an escape plan from maths, but the escape plan turned out to be a passion, and I'm grateful for that. It wasn't just an escape plan and then you got stuck there. No, it turned out to be a real amazing journey where I'm truly engaged with it. So that's how it started. And then, of course, once you get into your graduation, you are exposed to, for us, it was, I'm talking about the early 90s, in the 90s. When I did my BSc Home Science, we had 4 core subjects. So one was nutrition, the other was human resource, there was textiles, and there was child development.
Mm-hmm.
Now, out of these 4, this is my advice to everybody: choose the one that you have some interest on. So for me, I think nutrition was a no-brainer, because I think many things had to do with it and of course I was to find out later that maths was still a part of it, but I was okay with it. So I was okay with that part. But I think it was all about food. I loved the fact that it could, even help your own family members. And it was a really great icebreaker because anybody you talk to would warm up to you immediately when you say nutrition. There was an element of friendliness that came, or element of, like, if you go to a hospital and you have a doctor walk in, people get a little uptight because, in terms of medicines, in terms of medical terminology. But the minute I used to walk into a patient room, everybody is like suddenly giving advice. Everybody is a nutritionist. It was fun watching it because, that whole familiarity sort of is a connection. So I think that was my reason to go for nutrition.
Amazing. Amazing. So maths has paved your path to success. Thanks to maths.
Yep. Yes.
Great. Nice. So over the years of working full-time, consulting, and being with many job changes, you've actually managed to have a family, nurture a beautiful family. So how did you manage the work-life balance in this?
Okay, I know the word superwoman had, at least when I was finding my way, in that, in my 30, when I started off, that whole concept was about being a superwoman. And, but I think I want you guys to understand, it took me a long time to recognize the fact that please don't try to be a superwoman. There are many tricks to it. One, I think for me, the biggest learning of my own personality and how I was able to manage was trying not to be perfect. Okay, don't try to be perfect because there is no such thing as perfection. You just need to, because we are talking about many, many years of life. A lifetime is many years, and many years is many days, and many days is many hours and many minutes. So you want to look at it from that perspective, from the long term. So I used to be so engrossed in being perfect. Like, I explicitly remember an incident where, and I think that was my aha moment too. I think you're taking it too far. I remember nobody was at home. The kids had gone to school, the husband's gone to work, and I was the last one to leave my home. I remember closing the door and I just looked into the hall and I saw the mat, there was a floor mat. Mm-hmm. It wasn't aligned properly. Okay. I literally went back, put it back in its place, and then left. And I was like, don't fret. And it took me that moment. I was like, oh my God, that is crazy what you did just now. Who would notice that? Would you remember? So my takeaway from that, and from, I think I kind of changed after that. And of course, a lot of reading, a lot of reaching out to, reading books, reading how other people have managed. I think that's also helped to open up a bit, because my thing to all of you listening this would be, don't fret the small things. And I think the biggest takeaway which helped change my mentality towards, and it's also a part of being it's also self-love. Because when you're too hard pressed to do those kind of things, where you're looking at perfection to that core, you're also going away from self-love. You're putting too much of pressure on yourself. And that sort of takes a toll, because I remember many of those years, I would end up with, naughty back. Like, the back would be really tight, stiff. It took me a while to understand this is all stressors. And all of these stressors are coming from these little, fretting over the small things. I remember calling up my kids because they would reach home before we would reach home. And I would at least make 4 or 5 calls from office to check on them if they had had their lunch. And then it hit me. I'm only doing so much sitting in another place. I'm not in the moment with them in the house. And how many ever calls I made, I would come home in the evening to find the lunch, some days not touched. some days they may have eaten it, but on the phone they say, yeah, we're going to eat it. So for me, I had to take, because those are things which I can't really control. And I was sitting somewhere and trying to control it and worrying about it. I think that's what, when we talk about being mindful, I know there's a lot of conversation about mindfulness nowadays, but let me tell you, this is what mindfulness is all about. Taking a step back and seeing what you can do. If I'm sitting in my office, which is a 40-minute drive from my home, what was the point in me stressing out about what my kids would have? My job would have been to make sure the food is available at home. It's, kept in an easily accessible place for them, and maybe give them one call to make sure, they're given a gentle nudge, and that's it. There's no need to fret about it throughout. So you're not really fully at work because half your at home. And I think that is something which I learned the hard way. So don't fret the small things. And also before you hyperventilate about anything, ask yourself this question: is this something I'm going to remember 5 years from now? 90% of the time, your answer will be no. And I think as moms, we've been tuned from the very beginning to be perfect at everything, perfectly, fed children, perfectly balanced meals, manicured, pedicured. There's a lot of little things, and these thousands of these things just works on you. I think asking these two questions, sort of thinking over these two things would really change the whole dynamics.
True. Wonderful.
So I think balancing act is all about just taking a step back and not trying to be perfect.
Amazing. So I have heard many things from many people about parenting and work-life balance, but this is something a completely new perspective, and I really second it as a mother as well. So that's a nice perspective. Thank you so much for that. So going back, now in the present situation, what do you think girls are seeing? Are they actually focused on nutrition? Are the present kids aware of nutrition? And what will be one suggestion that everyone should know about nutrition?
See, okay, so there are two questions. What is one thing that everybody should know about nutrition? There is no perfect diet. I just want people to understand that. There is no perfect diet. Stop looking for the perfect diet. There is no best diet. There is no best ingredient. There is no best food. Okay, so because humans, we live in an environment which is very economically driven. Okay? So there will be a lot of foods that are going to be given superstar status. But they are not the only foods in this world. So I think that's one thing I want everyone to understand, because what I see now is a whole, the social media with influencers, even your best friend who lost 10 kilos could become an influencer, give you a diet advice, because you're aspiring to be like them on a physical level. It's all about the physicality, when you're looking at social media. It's not about economics. It's not about preferences. It's not about, is the food easily accessible? Yeah, avocado is good, but if you're in India, do you want to pay 500 rupees for a kilo of avocado? There must be something else that is similar in nutrient composition to avocado. You don't need to spend that money which you don't have, if you don't have. You get me? If you can afford, so that whole thing has to, I think the conversation needs to change now. We cannot look at, because for me, it kind of makes me a bit sad, and it's a little bit of emotional, like a bit anger, a bit sadness, because food on social media is made to look like it belongs to or health, well-being, nutrition, good nutrition. It's made out to be like it's only for the elitist or the rich. It's not, because if you're taking a step back and looking at science, science does not discriminate. So if you have a farm where you have apples, they're equally good as a Keralite who has more of bananas available. Okay, but hey, if you can afford to buy an exported or imported avocado, which is organic, or grapes that's come, please do it. So you don't need to, everybody has their socioeconomic status. Remember that and just make the best use of, because the basics of nutrition doesn't change. It's got to be more fruits, more vegetables, okay, more whole grains, a lot of good proteins. Now, protein can be the vegetarian sources like lentils, dals. You have the non-veg, the animal proteins from fish, chicken, etc. You'd have nuts and seeds, that is a fat source, oils. And then you'd also have fun foods, like social foods, whether it's your jalebi or the Navrathri, Diwali sweets. Those are not your main components. So we all know this, but I think the conversation has changed from the bigger picture to the minute ones, which are insignificant. Is a red apple better than a green apple? And you're like, I don't even like apples. And then, so the narrative the big narrative is still the same. It's the minutiae that has been given more focus. Should I drink cold water or hot water? And then suddenly on social media, you can even see dietitians and nutritionists making posts about the benefits of hot water and the benefits of cold water. And I'm like, hey, listen, it's your preference, whatever suits you. But water is the most important thing. You need to have, access to clean water. And if you have access to clean water, are you drinking enough? I think the narrative should change, because, it's nutrition. There's nothing like a giveaway. This is the best diet plan for you. And also in terms of your second question about the children, I think the foundation starts with them being toddlers. So again, this is something which I want all the moms, all the family members who are going to have a small baby, who's going to have the first feed. The breast milk, the breastfeeding is not a challenge, because that happens. But once a child is introduced to solids, remember one thing, as humans, we are born with a good brain-gut connection, very strong brain-gut connection. And that is exactly why when you have a bowl of food and you're feeding the baby, after a while, the baby will turn the head away from the food. That is the baby's internal cue telling the baby to stop eating. Now, as parents and as adults, what we do is we force the baby to finish the whole bowl. So slowly what happens is the brain and the gut, the stomach connection sort of disappears, and the baby has no clue about when to stop eating. And that is one of the main causes for obesity. Okay. And then once a child gains weight, they're all like, eat less, why are you eating so much, move more. But I think something that happens there, I was a chubby kid. My grandma used to overfeed me. I look at my old pictures, baby pictures, and I'm like, oh my God, I was obese. And she used to happily feed, and once I'm sure I would have turned my head, but she would have made sure the whole bowl was given, showing me the birds or showing me, So I want all the parents to, I keep repeating this every time I have the topic of kids coming. This is something that is extremely important for us to do. So, yeah.
I think the kid part is it's a firecracker in the answer. It's a very interesting thing. And I want all mothers and especially all grandparents to hear, because I have seen many things in that way. Great. So that's amazing. So as you're into diabetes and you've been, planning foods for diets for diabetes, how do you see I think children are also having diabetes, early diabetes nowadays.
Yeah.
So what is the causes and how can one prepare themselves or protect themselves from that?
See, when you talk of diabetes, there are at least let's just talk about the general well-known ones, type 1 and type 2. Type 1, it's not because of lifestyle. It's natural occurrence that could happen because of genetic factors, inborn, human body errors that can happen. That's type 1. But type 2 is lifestyle related. Right. And as always, there's nothing magical about it. What we need to focus is on movement. Engage your children, ask them to be active, encourage, because most kids are active, and I think we're all guilty of it. When the kids jump around, we'll say, "Kid, sit quiet, sit quiet." I think that's one common thing we say. Go and sit quietly. Go and sit. Why are you jumping? Go and sit. I think we should stop that narrative with the kids. Stop that conversation, and we should have more of let them do that, because we've seen kids are so restlessly jumping around. You tell them to go from one place to the other, they might hop from point A to point B. Encourage it, let it happen, don't stop that. So I think because by naturally we are all made to move. Okay? So again, the narrative changes from childhood. As adults, we encourage that. And also food habits. This is where I want to bring in another topic about the shopping cart. Over many years of working with multiple families, what we've seen is when the child is obese, the parents will bring the child to a practitioner and ask for nutritional advice. But I think, like we just discussed about the toddler being overfed. The second part is when the child is school going. Mm-hmm. As a parent, I think the important thing to remember, I wouldn't want to put the focus on the child. I want to put the focus on the parents. Because it's not the child who's a decision maker in terms of what goes into the grocery cart. Yeah, the parents have kind of complete control over it till the child is a teenage, like 12, 13, because that's when they show a little more independence. And so make sure your shopping cart has more of whole foods, fruits, vegetables, your wheat flour, your rice, your breads, chicken, fish, dals, lentils, different types of lentils. Don't have to keep having only the same kind of lentils. Mix and match different things, different types of nuts and seeds, whatever you can bring in. And at the same time, you do not need to demonize the chips and, because I see a lot of parents passionately being very vocal about it. So what happens is children end up with this feeling of good food and bad food. I think we need to have that whole conversation needs to go into line of more of whole foods, and the other one will be social fun foods. Even the words negative connotations with cheat meal, treat meal, it doesn't do good in the long run. You should develop a neutral relationship with all foods. So the chips and chocolates do not have to be there, but they're also part of the social environment. So as long as the children know how to balance it out and enjoy it, I think you're good. This takes a bit of practice for everybody. It's not something that comes easily because the narratives are like that, especially with social media. Everybody is demonizing certain foods, So that's a whole thing.
Amazing. I think the social foods part and the fun food part is something really a good takeaway for many of us. And I really like that. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. Yeah. Great. So going on towards the entrepreneurial side of a woman, how do you see and how should women empower themselves to be better entrepreneurs?
again, see something, okay, when you're talking about anything, any venture that you want to get into, I would think women need to know what they're getting into. Don't just, make sure you have the support system, or you're working around the support system that you may have created for yourself. Now, whether it is, because if you're going to become an entrepreneur, there is a lot of hard work. It's a 24/7 job. You are never going to go on a holiday, at least not mentally. Yes, physically you can go, but you might end up having to take some decisions at some point. Yeah. So I think it's very important as an entrepreneur, if you're going to become an entrepreneur, make sure you know what you're getting into. And also, if you're a working woman, I would think the first few years, if you have this idea of becoming an entrepreneur, maybe work your way to it. Don't leave your job from the start. Sort of, we call it like 1% of your time you could spend on your entrepreneurial. Yeah. So, yeah.
Great. Super. Amazing. So hence we are almost at the end of our interview. Just your last or your amazing advice to women to be nutritionally as well as mentally and physically empowered. How should they be?
I think, again, I don't have any words of advice, but what I think is we women are already empowered. We are already strong. We just need to be very practical about, take a step back and be practical about. I think we women are very emotional beings.
Yes.
That's something which I've learned from my own journey and my own personality. And I think I can see that in a lot of other women. We are very emotional, and it's true. We have a lot of connectivities in our brain. We connect too many wires. So take a step back, look at things from the perspective of, because I'm trying to find that balance between your own personality. See, we talk about me time. It could even just be getting yourself a cup of coffee. That could be a very well a me time. It doesn't have to be a spa, a visit to the spa, or visit to an exotic place. It could just be that you wake up half an hour before the family and you're giving 15 minutes to yourself early morning with a cup of coffee. And that could be very well your, a way to empower yourself for the day.
Amazing.
I would also think reach out to, there's a lot of information out there. So let's say if your child is not eating vegetables, rather than Googling for which is the best vegetable for a child, Google for how do I feed, give me recipes where I can hide the vegetables.
Yes.
Find solutions for your real problems. Don't look at, like I said, there's no perfect diet, there's no perfect food. So you need to make sure you're finding ways to include more vegetables. How do I do that? How do I drink more water? I don't like the taste of water. Google that up. You might get more options to make sure, you're still getting flavored waters without, etc. Yeah.
Amazing. So the perspective is completely new and fresh, and so it's been a lovely interview with you and discussion with you, ma'am. So thank you so much for spending time on a weekday for TWF, and wishing you all success on your Good Food Guru path.
Thank you so much, Amrita, for having me here, and wishing you all the success too.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.